Hello and welcome to AXSChat. We're delighted to have Kevyn Eva Norton with us today. Kevyn is a colleague of both Antonio and myself and is a member of the Atos scientific community. And I'm working with Kevyn Eva on a couple of things relating to human-machine interfaces. So it's great to have you with us. You're not wearing your work hat tonight, so it's very interesting to hear about the side project, and it's also great to have another person with side projects. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and then a little bit about Shadow's Edge and the work you're doing?
Hi Neil, hi Antonio, thanks so much for having me. So about myself, I'm a Swiss 50-year-old, been working in consulting for the last, I guess, 20 years. And I have always liked to be at the edge between technology and whatever you can do with technology. So it was like from teaching people to use Word in the beginning to then doing more project management and then doing a lot of things around the new ways of working. So how does technology actually enable people to be more flexible and to be have more freedom to work in a way they want to work, and that is more reflecting their personality and their abilities and their desires actually. And so my way of working at the moment, which is being part-time with Atos and part-time independent, it reflects that. It's a choice I'm making to say I want to do a part of the work is more in the business world and part of my work is more in the philanthropic world. And that leads over to Shadow's Edge. And Shadow's Edge is a game that we're developed for teenagers who are facing serious health challenges. And we want to support these teenagers to express their emotions and to do art and to really think about what is it that's happening with this disruption of a severe health challenge, and to go right into that, like to actually be able to talk about the good things of such an illness, and which the teens actually tell us that there is, and also the very bad things, and to just really go, like, be able to express anything that's there. We want to give space, practically.
And I think this is tremendously interesting because and I know Antonio and Deborah too, who's, by the way, not here today because she's being dined out in Saudi. I know she's been taken out by the same gang that took me out last week, so I'm sure she's having a very interesting time. But we're all interested in communities and how people can come together and support each other. So and I've had a look at Shadow's Edge, and it seems like a really interesting project. I know that you've got some very interesting groups that are coming forwards as well. So you've got some communities that you weren't necessarily expecting. Some for example, I think you told me that a large proportion of the people that were early adopters of the game were people that had Lyme disease, and
yeah. Yeah, so it is that we were thinking about launching this game for people with any kind of physical illness, and we were surprised that there's actually so many people dealing with Lyme disease and chronic Lyme disease, because it's like Lyme disease, you can have it and then it goes away, but apparently there's a really large community that has to deal with this over a longer period of time. And it was interesting to see that then it's like when we launched the call for beta, that you have these pockets of people coming on. So it was like, so one person with Lyme disease, and then it was more and more people, which showed that there's the communication in these communities that we're sharing our invitation to each other.
Yeah. Mm. Are you able to track how the message spreads? Obviously, you've got a basic feeling that it's spreading throughout that particular community of young people, but are there any sort of metrics? Because that's the other thing that Antonio are always interested in is finding out and understanding how these interactions happen and how the message spreads.
Yeah, I mean, it's very basic. What we have is an Excel sheet with for the beta we had 155 signups. And so we're able to see that actually 35 of those came through the Lyme community. a lot of which is a big part. And then we had a large part in Facebook, also nearly as many, and then some through friends and family. I have to say, is of course everybody has people that are concerned with health issues in their closer surroundings. It turns out, and but it's very basic. So what we just track where did we get the referral from. Not everybody tells us, but most people do. Which is also interesting. I found how teenagers, like some of them, very minutely describe what they're dealing with, and I would say like the 3/4 actually are very specific about what they're dealing with, and 1/4 chose not to disclose it.
I'd help if I unmuted myself. Go on, Antonio.
Can you tell us a little bit about the process of developing of the game? The team of people that were collaborating with you. What are the areas of interest, and how that all was able to come together?
Yeah. So the founder and the author of the game Shadow's Edge is Sherry Brisson. She herself, she's a Californian, and she herself faced brain cancer in her early 20s. And she published a book together with Rose Offner, a journal for young people, which is called Digging Deep. And that came out 3 years ago and was distributed to hospitals, to 35,000 hospitals in the States. And for Sherry, in her personal story, the way she talks with us about it, it's been key, this aspect of dealing with your emotions. So like dealing with a serious health issue, there's a lot of like doctor visits, a lot of technicalities, and she felt like the emotional aspect, she only learned how important that is many years later. So for her, it's like her personal mission to say, if I would have known earlier how important it is to go into my emotions, the good ones, the negative ones, the tough ones, all of them, and sort of just recognize them and understand that all that difficult dealing is part of me. She felt that would be really helpful, and with that, it was pure chance how the team actually came together. It was an ex-colleague of mine from Microsoft, Rosemary Lockhorst, who's the producer of the game. She met Sherry through her husband, and then they got talking, and they got talking about the Digging Deep book, and that Sherry wanted to bring it to the digital world. And then Rosie, the producer, thought of me because I had done some work in digital publishing and in media innovation and in digital transformation. So we wrote a strategy for Sherry on how to bring the book into the digital world. Which then became the idea of the game, and then we looked for a game company. The game company is in the Netherlands. They're called Little Chicken, and so they've done a few games in the health sector, like for the Kidney Foundation, for the Association for the Blind, and so it really became to be that it's this team. There's Garth Sundem, who's doing social media for Digging Deep since the beginning. So it's like a patchwork of people that came together to create the game. And one thing that we were always very clear on is we had like a vision workshop in the beginning in Amsterdam, and there also we had 2 teenagers with us. And it was from the beginning we felt whatever we do, we want to test it very, very early, and as we move along, we want to test it with teenagers who are dealing with serious health issues, so that we actually can understand, do we hit their needs do we meet their needs with what we're doing, and is it fun, is it not fun? So we've been all along this journey, like development started in February this year. We've been engaging with teenagers. So I would say that's if I would look at all the people that are involved in this project, those are the ones that make up this team. Yeah,
It's quite a large and quite a diverse group of people that have come together to bring this together. What do you think? Obviously, you're going to be launching in a couple of weeks' time. What
Yeah.
are the plans and the next steps? Are you planning to hit a certain number of users and get into how's it going to be distributed? Are you going to have people out in the world wide world doing it, or are you going to be going through healthcare organizations? How are you going to introduce people to the game?
We're going to do both. So we're going to do
Okay.
it's going to be accessible through the App Store on iPhone and for Android, and we're going to market directly to teens through social media. We've been collecting ideas from the teens. For example, what kind of YouTubers, vloggers would they be interested to have talk about the game and to maybe have a playthrough done to the game. And then, of course, also through health organizations, because we hope actually that digging the Shadow's Edge game can become a tool for the teens to work with themselves, but potentially also, if they choose to share what they write, to share what they create, also with the people, with their caretakers, or the health professionals that are supporting them on their journey. But we felt it's very important to do it on both tracks, because some of the feedback we're getting is actually it's a relief to have a place that's private to share. So we have a sharing functionality in the game where the teens can share their art, and the feedback we're getting is yes, they would actually like more interaction even with other teens, and more of an interactive game than this version 1 that we're providing. And at the same time, they also say it's really good to have a place that's just my own, where I can actually where it's a private space where I can write, where I can create, just to sort things out for myself, and actually not sharing it. So some were verbal actually about saying, when we asked them, would you like to be able to print your journal, or would you be able to to get it out of the game? And some of them actually very clearly said, no, I want this to stay digital and private and not be out in the open, and that's part of the value it can bring. So we don't know yet exactly how it's going to develop. Yeah.
It's and this was born out of you've talked about journaling. This was born out of the idea that it's a good idea to keep a diary, but very few young people do, and that you wanted to find a way that would engage them to express themselves, right?
Exactly.
I have to say, I've every time I've tried to keep a diary, I've singularly failed.
Yeah, and that exactly. That was like a really interesting moment in the game development, when we sent out one of the very early surveys, enthusiastically saying, okay, so what do you think about journaling, and do you journal? And pretty much we had, I think, 3 answers: people who said yes, and it's really doing me good, and all others said, well, actually not, I wouldn't know why. And then we said, okay, but still, it's like it's this, we believe in it, and so let's see if we can find a way. And it's then we tested some prompts, so saying, okay, is it like very specific ones, like how is it to have to take medication every day, or do you remember the moment when you were diagnosed, where were you, and what happened? And it's interesting that for these kind of prompts that are very specific to the situation of dealing with a severe illness, that actually there we got feedback. Like one teen wrote, like, I felt these prompts were really written for me, and that they felt like it seems they feel that it's actually good to be asked questions about the reality of what's going on, and then the emotional side. So this, it's the journal, you get supported in what to write about, which seems to be appealing to the teens, is what we're hearing.
Yeah, no,
not
I can
to all of
imagine
them,
that.
of course. Mm-hmm.
I can imagine that, because I have to say, you sort of sit there with a blank piece of paper or a blank Word document or whatever, and you think, well, what am I going to write? What, do I just do, the chronological order of the day, got up, had coffee, blah, 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 or is it more than that? And why would people want to know? I think those prompts are really key. I think that dealing with emotion around disability and illness is actually, writing can be really cathartic, but it's hard, and the hardest part of all is getting started. So the fact that you're doing this is really, I think, very interesting, and the fact that you're using gamification to do it, again, very interesting indeed, because finding ways to get people engaged and get people to start expressing these emotions, which once released are helpful, is, I think, really important. I know you've got a question, Antonio.
Yes, I do. No, over the last we have doing AXSChat for some time now, and we have guests who have from different experiences working in healthcare, dealing with patients, and we have also followed a good number of these projects online. There was a very interesting one at Stanford called TED-Med, where the speakers were patients, and that it was, and then the feedback from the doctors attending the event was quite positive in terms of opening new ways of channels of communication and understanding the patients from a different angle, because usually we're talking about healthcare events where mainly you see doctors, you don't see anyone else in the panels of speakers. We also had other guests who are helping doctors to communicate with patients in order to understand them better and to improve the communication between both. So is there, from the app and game that you are building, is there something that then healthcare professionals can later use that can help them to better understand the teens and their challenges?
I mean, we're actually looking for healthcare professionals who would be interested to use the game in the setting of their work with patients. So we'd be very interested to see if like somebody who works with a patient after they leave the hospital. So if to ask the patient to write, and then say, after a week, actually bring the writing to the next session, and then to see what develops. It could be a good preparation actually for working together. So we'd be very interested to have healthcare professionals who would be interested. We're starting to slowly contact also here in Switzerland, like the Children's Hospital, and they said they would have interest to look at it in such a setting, but it's early stages.
Yeah, I think there's always
just
amount of bureaucracy involved in getting these things introduced too.
Yeah.
No, just a correction to my note, and like Neil was pointing, is the event in the States was MedX, not TED-Med, but it was at Stanford. It was a very interesting event, and all the information is online for such. It's quite good.
Yeah, I think it happens every year, and one of the guests that we had was a lady called Carolyn Garrick, and she does something which I absolutely love, which she started a community online, which was called Hospital Glam. So they were trying to reclaim the medical space for patients by taking pictures of themselves in ways that were not well, they were glamorous pictures. So some of the pictures that she's taken could quite happily sit on the cover of a fashion magazine, except that what she's wearing is sort of ECG equipment rather than designer clothes. But I think it's a really fantastic group of people that she's brought together, and it's really designed to empower. And I think that there's some similarities between what she's done for an older group of people as to what you're trying to do.
Yeah, it's because we're trying to bring some like we brought a lot of care into the game on the visuals, and the music was interesting. We got actually feedback that it's way too gloomy and way too somber. So we actually changed that based on the teen feedback. But we wanted to make it really something that shows, hey, this is it's a valuable experience, and we value the situation that you guys are in, and want to provide something that shows that there was a lot of care in it. And we wanted to make it fun. So there's the aspect of that you find the pages first. There's a backstory of Shadow's Edge that had the storm that destroyed it, and so that you're there actually to help Shadow's Edge. And that was interesting that appealed. So we got feedback, yeah, the graphics, the music, it's nice to have something that's so cared for. And it's nice to have like this backstory that is being created for the special situation that we're in. And
yeah, keep failing and keep failing to unmute myself. I'm doing really well here. Technology's failing me today, or rather I'm failing with technology, which is more like the truth. So obviously there's the artistic element, which I think is really interesting. I'm pretty rubbish at art. My wife is excellent, but I'm rubbish. Is there any sort of barrier created by the fact that you're the sort of artistic element? Do you think that you might explore allowing people to express themselves through slightly different medium in a future iteration of the game?
Yeah, I mean, it's I think it's like we're all very, very open to see this develop further. And we did get feedback that some people loved the journaling aspect, some really didn't connect with the journaling, some loved the creativity. We got some really good ideas from the teens on providing like more for like a coloring book.
Yes.
So that you would actually have, and that's something which we probably want to bring in the game in a soon release after the first release, is like tasks on drawing that make it easier, like with the journaling prompts, that you have like more concrete art prompts also.
Yeah,
we're providing stencils at this point that support the creativity, but there I think there's a lot open to also to make it more accessible to people who don't feel so comfortable with creating in colors and in shapes, to get into that.
Yeah,
to have some fun with it.
I guess it's a bit like some of the other computer games where you start off with novice mode and you've got all of these little AI things helping you along. Yeah, it makes it more enjoyable rather than because some games can be really quite hard, and you sort of crank the difficulty level up and immediately fall flat on your face. So I like that.
Yeah, it's something very interesting I found. What to me was surprising is how different the experience is in terms of finding the pages. Like some people said they're too hard and some people said it's too easy. So that was a total surprise for me. That's something so which I thought would be like, so there's sort of a common understanding if this is easy or if this is hard. The opinions vary from very, very too hard to too easy. And it just, for me, that was a great learning on the individuality of the experience for people. Very, like something small but surprising. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that people absorb information in very different ways. Have you found that changed with different cultures, or is it just something that you haven't had enough of a sort of a spread of people yet to really understand the demographics? Because I think there can be differences.
Yeah, I don't think we have a broad enough population in terms of cultural differences. We have the majority of our players are in the United States. We have a few in Ireland. We have a few in Holland. But it's so that would be too early to say. We're bringing the game out in English and in Spanish to start with, and then early next year or early mid next year, we're gonna move into the German speaking and probably Dutch speaking areas, because that's just because we're from the project team, we're there, and we
Okay.
hope to leverage our networks.
Interesting. So, because we're coming towards the end of our time, do you want to give us another reminder of where people can find the game and everything?
Yeah. So it's on the 21st of October. It's going to be downloadable on the Apple App Store and on the Google Play Store. And it's called Shadow's Edge. And it's free. And it's for teenagers facing serious health issues. It can also be for their siblings. It can also be for their parents. And we hope that many will download it and will share it and will spread it and will provide us feedback so we can make the next versions just be more of what is needed.
Excellent. Thank you very much for providing a space for people to be able to talk about these things. I think it's really important. I also need to, when I'm giving out my thank yous, thank Barclays for being our supporters, for keeping the lights on and enabling us to do the captions and turn them around quickly. So thank you, Barclays Access. Thank you very much again, Kevyn Eva. It's been a real pleasure chatting with you. And we look forward to you joining us on Twitter tomorrow night.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.